Welcome to the Catholic History Show. My name is Brendan Lane, and I'm a former Catholic high school history and theology teacher. And so today I thought I'd talk about the Knights Templar. Now, we aren't going to go down the fanatically speculative paths of guys like Dan Brown. Instead, today I thought I would just focus on the humble beginnings of the Knights. So how did the Knights Templar get started? To begin with, we have to understand Jerusalem fell to the Christian Crusaders in 1099. Capping off one of the most miraculous military campaigns since the days of Constantine. You see, in the late 11th century, the Turks were quickly destroying what was left of the Roman Empire, what historians today call the Byzantine Empire. If you'd gone back then, they wouldn't have called it the Byzantine Empire. They wouldn't have known what you're talking about, but modern historians refer to it as the Byzantine period. In any event, the Byzantine Empire asked the Pope, Urban II, for help, and he responded by calling, of course, the First Crusade. Swords about the cross. God wills it. And so they went off and they captured Jerusalem on July 15, 1099. Now, during the campaign, the Crusaders had fallen out with the emperor in Constantinople, and they decided not to turn over the lands that they conquered back to Byzantium. Instead, they created what was called the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Latin Kingdom, putting one of their Western knights on the throne. But sadly, this new kingdom was in a very precarious state. So the Westerners, these guys from modern day Europe, they were in this foreign land which had seen a massive decrease in Christian numbers since the days of the Muslim invasions the first time. And so while the map of the Kingdom of Jerusalem looked very impressive, demographically speaking, they were in very big trouble. Now, with the capture of Jerusalem and the Holy Land, they saw a dramatic increase in the original form of a vacation, which, of course, is a pilgrimage. And as pilgrims came to the Holy Land, the Latin kings' problem exploded in their face. For the most part, the cities were well protected, so the pilgrims could dock in the coastal towns along the Mediterranean. However, Jerusalem, obviously, and most of the sites mentioned in the Bible aren't coastal towns. That meant the pilgrims had to travel using the roads, and that was a very big problem. The king at the time was Baldwin II, and I think I'm going to do another video on Baldwin II because I love Baldwin II. In any event, Baldwin barely had enough men to safeguard the cities, let alone control the countryside. This meant that Muslim bandits and marauders were able to lay in wait and assault and enslave the unarmed pilgrims as they made their way to the different holy sites. And this is really important, right? Because at the time, there were like slave markets for the Christians in these Muslim lands, and they would capture just regular Joe holy people that were trying to go to holy sites and sell them into slave markets. And so this needed to be prevented and needed to be stopped. But Baldwin II didn't have enough knights to protect these people. Well, at this time, there were two knights who had remained in the Holy Land, Hugh of Ban and Godfrey of St. Omar. And they desired to live a holier life than the one that they had led so far. And in 1118, they asked permission that they may live a more contemplative life. They wanted to become monks. However, Baldwin II was desperate. He had so few troops as it was, he couldn't have his best soldiers running off to go live in a monastery. And you have to understand, these knights, they're like human tanks on their chargers. I mean, these are like the elite fighting force for Christendom. And so Baldwin couldn't have them going off and taking off their armor and putting down their swords and going to become monks. So he told them they couldn't leave. But then, in 1119, Easter came. And in Jerusalem, there was a large pilgrimage group of about 700 Germans. And after Mass and prayer at the Holy Sepulchre, they decided they wanted to go out to the Jordan to see where our Lord was baptized. And the road that they were on is called the Road to Jericho, and it's mentioned in the Bible. This is the road that our Lord uses in his parable about the Good Samaritan. So even in the time of our Lord, this road was famous for its bandits. Everybody would have recognized that. But in 1119, it was much more unsafe. So as the German pilgrims made their way, they were completely enveloped by Muslim marauders. About 300 of them were killed. And it was a complete disaster, PR disaster. I mean, this is the holiest day for the Christians, and Baldwin can't even keep these pilgrims from Germany safe. But Baldwin sends out this band of knights after the murders, but by the time they arrived, the bandits were all gone, and the Latin king needed a solution, and that's where these wannabe monk knights came in. Hugh and Godfrey would create this new order based on the Augustinian rule, but they would apply it to knights. And their main purpose would be to protect the pilgrims on the roads of the Holy Land. And the rest, of course, is history. At least it should be. And so this new order that was being created, of course, became the Knights Templar. And so this is the beginning. This is how it begins, that they want to protect these pilgrims. But before I close, I want to dispel one of the myths associated with the Templars. And this myth is made famous, of course, in the Nicolas Cage movie National Treasure. And it goes something like this, right? The Knights Templar had their main chapter house on the Temple Mount. And so they decided to dig down below the foundations of their citadel. And down in the ground, they found all this Jewish treasure from the Temple of Solomon, including the Ark of the Covenant. And all this treasure helped make the Knights one of the wealthiest institutions in the world. Now, this is complete and total horse manure. How do we know this? Well, easy. It's true Baldwin II gave them his original palace, which had been a mosque, and it was believed to be over the site of Solomon's temple. In fact, that's how they got the name, the Templars. But the problem is, we know for a fact today, through archaeology, that their fortress was nowhere near the actual location of Solomon's temple. And the Templars' site had just been misidentified as the site of the temple. And this was pretty common when the Crusaders came in. They were told all kinds of different stories about where certain things were, and it took a while for them to figure out exactly where the original sites were. So if the Templars, though, had become a bunch of amateur archaeologists and dug down below their citadel, they would probably have discovered some cool stuff, but they would not have found the Jewish treasure or the Ark of the Covenant. The Knights Templar were a group of some of the finest Catholic men in Christendom's history, and it's an absolute shame. I mean, it's an absolute shame that their history has been usurped by the Freemasons, of course, and the Illuminati clowns. In any event, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm definitely going to do more videos on the Knights Templar, so keep tuned. There's a lot of really cool battles that they were in. They have some amazing men that are associated with their chapters. So I think I'm going to have to make several videos about it. I'm obviously going to talk about the Freemasons and their stuff. I'm actually working on a video right now. I'm working on getting sources for it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the show, The Curse of Oak Island. I've watched every episode of every season of the show. So I like the show. But a lot of the stuff that they present in that is just fiction in terms of the historical significance of the Knights Templar. I'm not saying that they weren't in Oak Island. Maybe they were, but they're definitely not Freemasons. So I'll talk about that in a different episode. But anyways, I think the Knights Templar are a really important military order, obviously, in Catholic history. And we don't have enough Catholics talking about it. We have a lot of secular historians and obviously the Freemasons talking about it. We don't have enough Catholics talking about it. I'm not a historian, but I've got good resources that I can use to try and bring some of the stories to light. So in any event, that's kind of where I'm going. I'm gonna try to make more videos about the Knights Templar and some of the other military orders, especially obviously the Knights of Malta, Knights of St. John, the Order of St. James from Spain, which I talked about in the video on Siege of Sevilla. There's quite a few, and so I think this would be a very interesting thing to get into, so I'm going to make more videos. So in any event, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and you're supposed to click the bell, in the notes, click the bell, and then you'll get notifications when I post new videos. And I'm on track right now for about one a week. I might do a little bit more, we'll see. And I hope you have a great week. God bless.